Well, good afternoon, friends. It's time for our midweek question this week. And this week, you got me one that I got to have some notes for. So you'll have to pardon me during this video as I consult my notes. Our question is actually very straightforward. What's the role of parents when their kids are grown? The reason that I have to go to notes for this one is because I'm sure you know, I don't have adult children. At this point in my life, I feel like I am an adult child, and I'm sure my wife would agree. But this is such an important question, right? Like, what is the relationship like for parents and children, especially when they're a little bit older? And I think the struggle that we have is sort of twofold. We spend years teaching, right? Guiding, sometimes even disciplining, right? Probably disciplining. But when they become adults, that relationship changes. Everything changes. Your love doesn't change, but your role does. And we know that Scripture gives us this guidance. We've probably heard this verse 100 times when you talk about parenting. Proverbs 22:6, right? Train up a child in the way he should go, and even when he's old, he will not depart from it. And a lot of people, they read this verse as like, I got to put all the priority on when they're small, when they're little, and they're growing. I got to make sure they grow well. And then when they're adult, we turn them loose and we let them go. But I don't read that verse this way. I read that verse as an ongoing training. The training doesn't end. It just looks different when they're older. Jim Burns calls it letting go of control. That's how he summarizes parenting adults. Adult children need freedom to make choices and even mistakes, unfortunately. And so our role as the parent shifts from director to guide, from manager to mentor. And I think that part of this is that parenting happens in stages. I read a book years ago that described it this way, that early childhood, you're laying down rules and working on basic behavior. And in middle childhood, you're teaching values and skills and responsibility. It's why do we have these rules in place, right? Not just here's the rules, but here's why we have rules. And then in the teen years, you're doing more mentoring and guiding and helping them to think independently. But then in adulthood, you move into more of a consultant role. You're available for advice, not necessarily directing their lives, but available as a resource to them. And Scripture, I think, gives us these examples as well. Moses training up Joshua, and then later Joshua leading Israel without Moses controlling every decision. Numbers 27 gives good guidance for how guidance without control works, what that looks like. And because our adult children still need us, they still need you, right? Like, I still need my parents, right? It's just a different kind of need. Adult children need presence. They need a listening ear, encouragement, right? Not just constant direction. Presence, listening, encouragement. Jesus models this for us with his disciples, I think. After teaching them, he sends them out to make their own decisions. And in Luke 10, what we see is this reminder that like guidance is still powerful for them, even after they were prepared, even after they knew, even after they were sent out, there was still guidance required. And yet, the other side of this, it's not just, I think, the question isn't just, how do I help my kids, but also, it's a change in role for the parents, right? Like, it's a change in identity as a person, because the hands-on years, they're done. And who am I if I'm not needed in that way anymore, right? And I think Philippians 1:6 reminds us that God is at work in our children and in us, right? Like, he is at work in us. He is seeing these things through to completion. And at some level, we have to trust him to do that to help and to work. We have to have some trust. And so our focus shifts. When our children are adults, our focus shifts from shaping them to nurturing the relationship, from managing choices to growing in faith and in marriage and in purpose, right? And so I want to offer some practical thoughts on this from my research and just Scripture. I'm a big proponent of the practical. I don't want things to be theoretical, right? And so let me give you some practical ways to love on your adult kids this week. The first thing is this. Have boundaries and respect them, right? Like, give them space, honor their privacy. We talked on Sunday about God respecting our free will when we talked about God, whether or not he could save people in hell. And it's like, God gives us this free will and he honors our free will. Sometimes that means we're going to make terrible choices, but we're free to do that, right? And we're also free to make the right choices. And so going along with it, the second thing is figure out when is the right time to rescue and when is the right time to allow consequences, right? In Galatians 6:7, it says that whatever one sows, that also will he reap, right? And so I think sometimes this is a hard line to find because we want to bail our kids out of every situation, and we want to help them and make sure they stay healthy and happy and on the right track. And man, sometimes it's hard to figure out where the line is, where we say, look, you still have consequences for the things you've done. You still have to do the time and pay your consequences. And so sometimes those are natural consequences. I remember walking through those classes, about small children, things like, well, if it's cold outside and they refuse to wear their coat, they're going to learn real quick they have to wear their coat, right? When the struggle, I think, with adult kids is that it's not just about wearing their coat, right? Like sometimes those consequences are much more dire, they're much more immediate, and it's just hard for the parent to figure out where that line is. I think of Joseph in the Old Testament, letting his brothers sort of face the consequences of their actions, trusting God's plan, and ultimately it worked out for all of them. The third thing is this. Be very intentional to affirm and encourage your kids. And I think this is true not just for adult kids, but for littles as well. Like, be vocal, celebrate their successes, speak life into them. In 1 Thessalonians 5, Scripture tells us to encourage one another and build one another up. And if we're going to do that for each other, how much more so should we be doing that for our kids? Our kids need us to speak life into them, to encourage them. Paul encouraged Timothy, and it gave him the confidence to lead. And I think of all of the people I've met in my life who just needed their parents to say something nice, right? Like to move out of criticism and into affirmation and encouragement. That doesn't mean you have to, affirm their terrible choices, but you should be able to look at your kid and have things that you can affirm verbally and frequently. The fourth thing is this: stay curious. And what I mean by that is continue to ask questions. Don't just give answers, but be genuinely curious to hear about your kid and their life and their thing they're going through and their thought process of how things are going. Stay curious, right? Jesus does this with his disciples. He guides them to think for themselves. He asks good questions. We've talked about that the last couple months. The fifth and final thing is this, and really this is a good summary statement for all of these: be available, right? Like, be available without being intrusive. We all hear the horror stories of, such and such family member who lives across the street and is all in your business, right? But be available without being intrusive, all right? Build trust, have this relationship, be a safe place that they can go for guidance. Samuel was available as a prophet, but he didn't force obedience. In 1 Samuel 3, we see the power of being present without being controlling. And so our goal ultimately with our adult children is a lifelong connection instead of lifelong control. Letting go of the control side and prioritizing the connection with our children. I don't think that parenting ever ends. It just evolves. It becomes something different. It moves into love without control and guidance without judgment and staying present without being pressured, right? And so that's our goal. That's our goal, is to continue in good relationship with our kids, to be there when they need us, but to not be too intrusive about it. Ultimately, in Proverbs chapter 3, what we're looking for is this: to trust in the Lord with all our heart, and he will make our paths straight, right? And so trust the Lord with your kids. Trust the Lord in your relationship with your kids. Love them, release them, stay connected, but know that, especially by adulthood, they're making their own choices, their own decisions. And so I hope that this has been encouraging to you. As I put my caveat out at the very beginning, I obviously am not the parent of adult children. And so a lot of these thoughts just come from my general Bible reading, how we approach each other as people, and then some research into some friends and valuable resources of people who are in that stage of life. And so I hope this has been helpful to you. I hope it's been encouraging as well. And I hope that all of you have great relationships with your adult children, whether that's now or in 20 years. Be blessed this week. I'll see you on Sunday.